I'm going to do a really quick recap, but it's not going to really give you all the insights into what we covered in the first one. So I invite you, or highly recommend that you go back and look at that one after this if you haven't done so already. So and I would like, if you have I'm not going to keep slides up. I'm going to put one slide up with the agenda to share with you a couple of times. I think we'll go ahead and put that up now. But so if you have a pencil and some water and some paper or something to write on, or it can be, if you're typing into your computer, whatever, just to take some notes. And I'll leave this up while I do the quick recap. The first section, energy part 1 recap. So we talked about heroic energy. So what is heroic energy? Well, heroic is to have the strength for 2. It literally means have the strength for 2. And so we look at, why do we want energy? Well, we look at 2 reasons. One, we want energy because it's the engine that allows us to do everything in our life. So if we can optimize our energy, if we can optimize our physiology, if we can clarify our minds, physiology is 90%, our psychology is 90% physiology. So if we can really optimize our energy source, as you can see in this time when you're really challenged, you're going to be able to overcome those challenges. And the heroic part is that we're always going to do more for those we love than we tend to do for ourselves, unless you're really, really disciplined. So I invite you to think about why and for whom you're doing this. Who do you want to be a radiant exemplar for? Not only yourself and your own soul force, but who else? I mean, do you have a child? Do you have a partner? Is there someone specific that you would show up for at a whole nother level because you want them to see you as this energetic, positive, radiant exemplar in their life that they want to emulate, and your teams and whoever that is? So that's really what we're going for. And how do we do this? Well, there are some fantastic practices that we went over in part 1. A lot of science behind it now, since science seems to be the new religion, but there's great science behind all the efficacy of all of these. And then, and then the other thing we brought out is wherever you are right now, whether, because some of this high performance stuff can be intimidating, and like, how can I do that, or what, wherever you are is okay. You just want to become incrementally closer to where you want to be. When you are that radiant exemplar, best version of yourself, if you can envision that, you just take micro steps to get there. And we'll talk about how we do that. So we covered also what I call the 7 energy fundamentals. We say fun because people think of them as hard, but we want to embrace them as fun, and we want to gamify and have a beginner's mind, and like a child would, and enjoy this process, because it's going to be hard, but anything worthwhile is challenging. And so we covered breath, how we inspire. Breath is the #1 high performance practice, bar none. And the science behind optimizing your breath can increase your life capacity and your focus and all your internal capacities by as much as 20%. It's incredible. So if you want to live longer, well, I won't get into all the details of this. Most of this is in version part 1. We talked about eating and drinking, and I want to just want to take a moment around eating and drinking. We kind of eat and drink as a necessity as opposed to a luxury. And we are living in a very luxurious place where we get to have food, running water, drinking water, fresh meals 2-3 times a day of fresh food. And I think it's really important to embrace and celebrate our meals, and these gifts that we have, not take them for granted. So energy is about the mind. Energy is about what we put into it. Energy is what we receive out of these sources, like what we eat and drink. So moving, we talked about all the moving, micro movements. I call that motivation, because it's actually your motors running. And we talked about sleep and how critical sleep is. We talked about the power of meditation. It's not just an esoteric practice. It's a power play. Should be an essential part of your life in some form or another. We talked about the power of connection. So as one of my mentors says, everything is about relationship. whether it's relationship with your partner, with your children, with your parents, with yourself, with your inner soul, with your purpose, it's with your teams. Everything is about relationship. So optimizing energy for connection and using connection as a source of energy is an incredibly important thing to do. And then we talked about creativity. Yes, creativity as a source of energy. It's a two-way street. We think we have to have energy to create. Yes, we want to have energy to do deep work and create, but creating by its own nature gives us more energy. So we have, a quadrillion mitochondria in our system, about 10% of our body weight, which is actually our little cells that are like little energy factories. And when we create and we activate them and we treat them well, we become this huge empire of energy factories. So, so we're going to move on. Before we move on, I want to have you do one exercise we had you do last week. And if you got a pencil, there's a long list of practices here. If you know what you have to do. I mean, I can go through this stuff and we'll go through this stuff, but you know. So I want you to write down one thing that you can do in one of these areas that you're willing to take action on. It can be as small as you want, a micro habit. And one thing you want to remove, one habit you want to remove from your life. Just two things. If you want to share them in the chat, that would be fun. If you want to keep them to yourself, that's okay. But one thing, one habit you can add that'll improve you and help you improve one of these areas of your life, and one habit you can remove. So, and now, but we're going to do, take a pause for a moment, to a minute really, but it's going to be a little bit more to explain it. We're going to take a pause and we're going to practice what we call optimal breathing. So it's, I call this right down here, that number one habit and the power of 5. So we're done with our recap. Why the power of 5? Well, why the number one habit? Because this is a breathing habit practice, and it is the number one habit, breathing, of all high performers, is to optimize their breath, no matter what field they're in. And in the power of 5, there's a couple of authors and researchers. James Nestor just released a book called Breathe, fantastic book on breath, and Patrick McGowan has another seminal book on it called The Oxygen Advantage. And they both talk about all the research that's been done on the optimal breath, which is, I think the amount is right. It's powers of 5. So 5.5 liters, 5.5 breaths in, seconds on an inhale, and 5.5 seconds on an exhale. That gives you 5.5 breaths a minute. So it sounds really complicated, but we're going to do a minute of breathing together, and we're going to make it really easy, because we're not going to count the 0.5s. We're going to count an inhale of 5, an exhale of 5, and we're going to do a little lilt, what I call in between, where you're going to pause in between the inhale and the exhale, and vice versa. So we'll do this together. I'll count you through it, and it'll take us up to a minute. And I invite you to close your eyes so you can focus on your breath, because you're not going to see me doing much. And then the 3 rules of breath that you want to follow are: you breathe in and out through your nose only, mouth closed. You breathe into the bottom of your lungs. So breathe into your belly, into your diaphragm. That's where 80% of the oxygen gets transmitted into the bloodstream. And then you want to typically, if you want to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and relax yourself, you make the exhale a little bit longer than the inhale. These are even breaths. We're going to make the last one a little bit longer, so you'll follow me with the count. So it sounds complicated, but it's very, very simple and a great thing to do. It's recommended that you pause and do a minute to 2 minutes of breathing every hour to recalibrate your brain. And it's also recommended that you rest your eyes, get off of a screen, and or close them to give your brain a rest. So first we're going to take a release breath. So everybody breathe in, nice and big, and then just let it go. This can be out the mouth, and then we're going to, now in through the nose, we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and exhale. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Inhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to add a second to this. Exhale. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so just relax and return to normal breathing. In and out through your nose. Don't try to count. Don't try to do anything. Just kind of feel that moment. See if you notice any shift, any more sensitivity in your senses. And then let's come back together. All right. So hopefully it was helpful. And maybe, if it's new, sometimes we get stuck in our head and we get out of it. We don't pull into our body, but hopefully you'll notice the shift. That was fundamentally, if you do it without the explanations from me, 60 seconds. So, imagine you can do that before you walk into a meeting, before you walk home, go into your house after a hard day of work to meet with your family. Transition times are really great for that breath, or just breaks for the brain throughout the day. So now we're going to move on to, Dasha, is the outline in the chat there? Yeah.
I'll be adding it. The question is from the chat, do we exhale from the mouth?
No, the exhale, I'm sorry, it's exhale, everything's in and out through the nose. So on these breaths, you want to try to breathe. Optimal breathing is always going to be in and out through the nose, into the stomach or the bottom of the lungs. And then ideally a little longer on the exhale if you want to engage the parasympathetic nervous system and reduce some of the stress load. There are breaths where you use your mouth, but that's not really how you want to breathe. In fact, there's a practice when you sleep of taping your mouth closed so you don't breathe through your mouth, and you optimize what your nose. And there's a lot of reasons. I won't get into all the science around it. We got into it a little bit more in part 1. So I'm gonna move us on. You can just leave me up. That's okay. We're gonna go into algorithms now. So if you have, there's a flyer to download that has the agenda, and there's also a slide that Dasha put into the chat. I'm not sure if you can make that more clear, Dasha, or just add it again. So if you guys haven't had a chance to download that and you want to follow, but you won't necessarily need to follow, I can put it up again and I'll do a recap. So what we're going to talk about now is what I call algorithms, upgrades, and metrics. So we talked about this a little bit before. The human system, the human being, is one of the most complex ecosystems of supercomputers and energy generators. And on the other side of that, human change behavior is hard. As you can see with COVID and trying to adapt to new regulations and ways to keep people safe. I mean, human change is fundamentally difficult. So it takes incredible energy, which is why we're doing this work. And it takes what we call processes, which can be referred to as habits, or they can be referred to as algorithms. Noah Harari, one of the leading philosophers of our time and a great author, says that one of the most important concepts of the 21st century is algorithms. Well, what does he mean by that? So it basically means, the way that we create a computer or code a computer or code it or create is through a series of algorithms. If this happens, then this should happen. And if this doesn't happen, then this should happen. And what our goal is here with the foundational stuff that we covered in part 1 is that you want to build those habits so they become subconscious, basically an operating system running in the background that replaces the operating system that's causing you to do the bad habits. And once you do that, then you free up all kinds of computer power, which is your frontal cortex and your body and your cells and your mitochondria to actually create and to, go to the next level of your life. And so, there's ways to build habits. There's a great book by B.J. Fogg called Tiny Habits. And he calls it the ABCs of habit building. And he talks about take on achievable steps where you can win. And there's 3 parts, and then we forget to do those steps. So what do? He calls it the ABCs, which is there's an anchor, a behavior, and a celebration for each step of each time you do a new habit. So an anchor in high performance habits is called a prompt. So what's your prompt? It's like, okay, I get up in the morning, I'm going to meditate, but maybe I need a prompt. So I remember that until I don't have to think about it, because you don't want to have to wake up in a cloud and start to think about what are you going to do next, just like you would learn to brush your teeth. It's now an algorithm. So maybe you got to put a note on your mirror. So when you get up, first thing you go in the bathroom and you see this note, oh, I'm going to meditate, minimum 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe it's a walking meditation, but that would be a prompt. You could have a prompt on your phone that pops up at, a certain hour. Brandon Bouchard does a prompt for centering and breathing every time he walks through a doorway. So a doorway is an automatic prompt. So he walks through a door and he knows he's going to transition. He knows he has to take a moment, take a deep breath, set his intention for the next place he's going to enter, whatever it is, home or boardroom, whatever can be the case. So those are the prompts. So then the behavior, we know. I mean, some of you shared your behavior. So whatever that is, whatever is the action you're going to change, whatever the new habits you're going to develop, and make it small enough, and make it don't say, if you've never meditated, you don't have it as a habit. I'm using meditation just as an example. There's many more, obviously. Then don't say, I'm going to meditate 30 minutes a day. Don't start there. You set yourself up for failure. Say, I'm going to meditate 1 minute. Tiny habit. Have a prompt. I'm going to wake up, do whatever I do, brush my teeth, wash my face, drink my lemon water, whatever. And then I'm going to sit down and meditate for 1 minute. And then just do the breathing exercise that we talked about and make that your 1 minute. From there, I promise you can add another 10 seconds every day. You can add another minute. If you can do 5 minutes, once you allow yourself to begin, we all know, because we're all procrastinators on some area of our life, is once we actually start, it's not so bad, right? It's actually good. So that's part of it. And then the other part is a celebration. So if we don't celebrate, another way, that's what B.J. Fogg calls it, a celebration. I like that because it has a lot of energy in the thought of it, celebrating life, as opposed to reward and affirmation, which are also do the same thing and are on different practices of this, habit changing. So if you do that 1 minute meditation, it's like, yes, that's like me. I'm doing it. I am a meditator. I don't care if just own it. Like, sit in that for a minute. So, we spend so much time, all you overachievers, beating yourself up. And then all you end up doing is beating yourself up so you can't achieve. So we really want to celebrate the tiny steps, right? Tiny steps, just like you would when your child have a beginner's mind. When your child takes their first steps, and first time they get on their feet and they make it 2 feet across the room before they fall, you're still like, yes. You don't want to go, oh, it's like, you want to celebrate so they got the energy to get back up and go. I last year, as part of one of my trainings, as part of one of my certification trainings in coaching, we had to run a Spartan race at the end. I don't know if any of you know what a Spartan race is, but it's ridiculous. It's 21 crazy obstacles in a 5 kilometer run. And I actually couldn't watch the video of somebody doing it because it was too frightening. I watched it a little bit once and then I go, well, all I know what I can do here is that I can get myself in the best shape of my life prepared for doing it, and I can do my best. And then I'm going to show up. So I did that, but one of the things I had to do was pull-ups, and I could only do like 1, 2, 3 pull-ups. I haven't done pull-ups since 15 years old, And so I just I did I think I did 2 or 3, but I did like 2 pull-ups every day for a week. And then I would add 1 pull-up. And in 20 weeks, I imagine I got up to 25 pull-ups a day. But I could have never done that if I would have not done that micro habit, practice. Now, another piece is measurements. Measuring makes that, the reason video games are so popular is 1, because of rewards, and 2, because of measurements, scores. So if we're measuring what we're doing and we're looking against it, then we're not depending on our distorted perception to tell us how we're doing. As we all know, because we could go, I'm really tired today, but that's just a mental space, and your body is actually in really good shape that day, or vice versa. So there's a couple of ways of measuring. We have some great tools now. I usually ask my clients to get one of these. This is the technology side of measuring, and this is an Oura Ring. It's nanotechnology and sensors. There's the watches and many other tools so it measures my sleep. It measures the patterns of my sleep, my deep sleep, my REM sleep. It measures my heart rate variability. It measures my heart rate. It measures my movement. It measures my recoveries. So I look each day and I know based upon, did I eat a little bit too late? And I can see in the metrics of my sleep that I don't have a good deep sleep pattern. It's not good recovery. So, and several other things that come into play. And if, when I keep up my movement of the equivalent of 10,000 steps a day, it doesn't have to, I see the energy levels, and I see the heart rate, and I see everything else coming into play. So those are really great tools, and they don't have to all be high tech. I do what we talked about in the first class is micro practices, micro movement practices. So basically I have a little whiteboard that I write, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And then down on the side, I write the, meditation, number of hours of sleep, I do burpees. So burpees, the 3 sun salutations, whatever it is, 5 minutes of playing music, all these micro practices. And I just, check them off manually to see where I'm at. And I might not get them, but then I can look back at the week and see where where I can improve. I really recommend finding ways to measure. There's many ways to do it. And again, it's what we measure, we tend to pay attention to and improve. So we're going to do one measurement together now, which is more of a long-term life measurement. It's called the gap analysis. And some of you, many of you in business know a gap analysis. So it's like, where's the business at? Where's the gap to get the return that we want to get, the return. In this case, the ROI is us being the best version, the healthiest version, the most radiant version of ourselves. So what I want you to do, if you have a pencil and paper, is I want you to write 3 things down on the side. I want you to write energy. And I want you to write down work, purposeful work. I talk about optimal energy. Purposeful work is 2. Meaningful relationships is 3. And then next to each of those, I want you to write on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being, let's take energy, because that's where our focus is right now. I'm not where I want to be. I'm tired all the time. I'm cloudy. I'm, too much stress. So, and I'm not doing anything about it. I'm sitting on the couch and I'm watching Netflix at 6 hours a day. So that's one extreme. The other extreme is like, if you were the most heroic version of yourself, you're like this, suddenly you're energetically, you're like a 4-year-old kid jumping up and down and running on the beach fearlessly and have all that youth and vitality, or you're like an Olympic athlete, whatever it is for you. and that would be a 10. So just, where you want to be. So just mark on a scale of 1 to 10 where you are with your vitality and your energy along the mark to the ideal place of a 10, and then do the same for your work. Is your work filled with purpose? Is it rewarding? Is it where you want to be? And is there a way for an improvement? And where are you on a scale of 1 to 10? And then think for a minute about your relationships. This could be, you can focus if you have a life partner, you can focus on a life partnership, you can focus on your relationships with your teams, you can focus on relationship in general, your skills in communication and your capacity to influence and engage others with your presence. And show up for others fully. How is your energy there? So on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in relationship to your relationships? So we're just going to save this. If somebody wants to share on the chat, they can. It's not necessary. Dasha, there may be some questions coming up in the chat. So I'm going to cover a block of questions at the end, and save time for that. So write down your questions and let's come back to them. I'm going to move on. So now the next piece that was on the agenda, you don't have to worry about it. If you have it, great. It was called climbing mountains and riding waves. So mountains, like if you're climbing a mountain, you're going towards the peak. I tell people during COVID, they ask me how I'm doing. I say, well, I'm still climbing to the peak and there's avalanches falling all around me, but I'm still climbing to the peak. And why do we set these audacious goals? Well, we set these audacious goals, not just to get to the peak, because to challenge ourselves and to have a commitment that will drive us, right? So we're much more likely to prepare ourselves if we're going to take on a big challenge that's exceeded where we ever done before than we are if we don't have anything pending, right? If we don't have anything we have to meet, it's our procrastination. So, what I recommend to all of you is take this time and make it your best health year ever. Can you commit to the next year, over the next 12 months, getting in the best health of your life, or returning to the best health of your life? And you don't have to get there specifically, but you could at least give yourself a goal to move in that direction and double down on optimizing your energy and your health and just say, okay, I'm going to get, where I was 10 years ago. I want to be at least in that space. I want to have that kind of energy. I want to be where I was at 25, and I want to be, full of exuberance and vitality. So that's one thing. What I did is, I did this ridiculous thing last year. I don't necessarily recommend it, but it's an option. You pick your own path. This is the Spartan race. So, if I didn't prepare, I was going to die. If I prepared, I could only prepare by getting in the best possible shape I could. And so for 6 months, I got in shape, And I did. I'm in better shape than I've been in 10, 15 years because of it. Because once you get into that level, you tend to feel the benefits of that kind of energy, and then you want to maintain it, right? So for me to maintain it, I do my life in 7-year patterns, and that was year 1 of the next 7 years. It'll take me to 65. And so this year, I decided every year I'm going to do a physical challenge of a major scale that I've never done or taken on before. And this year for me, it's a mini triathlon. So it's, and the main reason I'm taking that on is because I'm not a very good swimmer. So it sounds counterintuitive, right? But not actually, because the challenge of having to learn to swim better enough to do a mini triathlon, which is, I think, a half a mile of swimming in the ocean, which I'm scared to death of, is going to actually help me have that capacity across many areas of my life. So, and it's going to push me to practice and train, which I wouldn't do otherwise, because like you, I put those things off. So the next thing is, we talked about, in terms of climbing mountains, that heroic energy. So have a really clear intention of both who you want to be, who you see yourself as you as in your better version of yourself when you've done this work, but also who you're doing it for, who you want to look up to you as a radiant exemplar in the world, because we really need some amazing role models today, which all of you are in your own way. And how can we use these practices, these energy practices, to up that, and to have it resonate and radiate out to others. So just by your presence, they're inspired to do the same. Now, this section is called Riding Mountains and Climbing Waves. Climbing mountains and riding waves. So riding waves means, rhythm and recovery. So it's really important we focus our work, deep work, and do it fully, 100%. Limit distractions, block deep work time that align with your optimal energy period. It's usually in the morning. In the high performance practice, it's called done by one. That means that you've done nothing but deep work and challenging things that you need your full attention on in that period. You don't allow any digital distractions, emails, texts, YouTube, anything to interrupt that until you get it done. Now that's hard for some of us. We all have different lifestyles, but that's just gives you a sense. And then you have deep work periods. But the thing is that you can only do that for so long, just like you can only exercise for so long. You need recovery periods. So in the high performance habits, they do a short recovery period every 50 minutes, every 45 minutes. But I try to do mine every 90 or so. But you want a recovery period from, being on the computer is not going to your texts or, checking your emails. It's off. I don't care if it's 3 minutes, just off. Give the brain a break. Do that breath we talked about. Do something completely different. Take a walk. Do a couple push-ups. Do some micro movements. Do whatever it is for you, completely off. And then come back on again completely. Because what happens is the brain is never optimally functioning. You're kind of suboptimally functioning, think you're optimally functioning. And that happens, and that just accrues over time until it degrades and degrades and degrades in your capacity to be able to function as fully as you would like to. So it's the same for athletes. They have to have intense recovery. The top athletes in the world sleep between 11 and 12 hours as part of their recovery when they're in training. Now that may be broken into different sleep pattern times, but so sleep's also a critical recovery. We talked about that in part 1, and there's some amazing science around that. So it's a wave. You think of it as rhythms throughout your day. Your sleep is a wave pattern of deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep, and you want to optimize these waves because that's the way your system runs. Optimize the peak performance time and optimize the full recovery time. So the other thing is, we called them fundamentals. I mean, the one thing that I learned from one of my 5-year-old nieces is she, when I asked her what was she doing today, she says, play. I'm going to play. She says, I'm 5 years old and I play every day. And that became my mantra. It's like, I said this, and she's rocking it. She's now a pediatrician and a doctor and a surgeon and a lead soccer player and happy most of the time and radiant energy. I mean, she knew then that if she just played every day full out, that that was just her mission, And so she plays full out in everything she does, in her relationships, in her work, and she enjoys it. So I invite you, as you're riding these waves, it's like, think of yourself surfing or skiing or learning to ride a bike for the first time. You're going to fall, you get up. It's just part of the play. It's part of the game, if you're going to play a sport like football, you don't just run touchdowns nonstop. There's all these challenges in between, but it's all play. If you're learning an instrument, we call it playing music, So and I have one of my clients who I had to redefine work for them as play, because we have such stress and anxiety around something we call work. You know, it just sounds hard. So I invite you to play. So the next piece I'm going to move through is, I say, go pro and go long. So what if you could get paid for what I'm talking about? I mean, you could literally get paid. If you listen to part one, you know, energy is our most valuable currency. You can't buy energy. You have to cultivate it from these little factories inside of you, these mitochondria. You have to create energy, right? And when you create energy, you create time. You enhance productivity. You enhance your relationships and your influence. And these are things that create prosperity and wealth. Now, they may not immediately get you, you know, $1 million in the bank, but $1 million in the bank won't get you these things either. They may, you know, it's going to give you a lot more strength to do it, and it's going to give you a lot more strength to deal with it when you have a financial crash or something like now, and it's taken away, because you still have the most valuable commodity of your life, which is your soul force and your energy, and nobody can take that away except for you. So wealth is basically defined by literally abundance, well-being, happiness, and prosperity. So we create those things. They're not money dependent. Money's another form of energy. Money's a good form of energy. I'd like to have more. You'd like to have more. You know, doesn't hurt for sure. But you can't always control that. It's an external force of energy that's necessary. But what you can control is the most valuable source of energy is yours, internal energy. And then prosperity. Prosperity literally means to move forward with hope. Move forward with hope. And we can talk about the science of hope. We don't really have time, but hope is not a blind faith. Hope is a science. It's a practice. You know, having a vision, having the agency to pursue it, just like we talked about with algorithms and goals, and then having multiple pathways, which Dolan's an expert at, and he can tell us all about it. So this is, you know, and you learn that in business, plan A's, plan B's, plan C's, you know, something's going to fail, you're going to pivot. It's just the nature. We are all doing it right now, you know, but if you maintain hope, you know, you stay prosperous and you bring prosperity to those around you. And then investing now for the future, like think of energy as like an energy bank, you know, that works with high levels of compounding interest. So if you can improve your energy in the next 12 months by 5%, and somebody's going to have to help me with the math here, and you do that 5% compounded over the next 5 years, I don't know what the math is on that. Somebody's going to, but I would guess you're going to improve your energy by more than 50%. And improving your energy capacity by that, it means you improve your capacity to excel in every area of your life, your relationships, your work, your dedication to your purpose and your cause and your missions. So, you know, and the thing about go long, so is, you know, invest for the future, compounding interest of this, you know, in Dave Asprey's new book, I don't remember if it's called Living to 180 or if it's, that's just the subtitle of it, but it's about living to 180 because Dave Asprey is Dave Asprey. So, and there's a lot of people in the longevity movement. I'm not sure if June is on our call. You know, my work with Singularity University, and Ray Kurzweil obviously is one of the leaders in the longevity movement. But I'm not so interested in living to 180, but I'm interested in living 150% to 80 or to whatever I live. And the thing is that if we practice the things that people are learning that are going to take them to 180, if that's, and they say it's possible according to the science, then they're the same tools that we can use, the same practices, the same habits that we can take advantage of that research to optimize every day of our life and our energy now, and to be vibrant when we're 85, I don't know what your lifespan is, 90, when we're, you know, whatever it is in our life, that we're still vibrant and full of vitality. So I only have a few minutes, and there's a piece that I left off that's called Amplified and the Secret Sauce. And I would like to get into this, but I'd rather take your questions, and I can set this for a future. So it's really around music. So a lot of my work, those of you who know me, I've been in, music and entertainment prior to, as part of the leadership work, but more prior to it. And one of the things about music is that I've always promoted and developed and researched and tried to bring into the world and into people's lives is how we can actually use it practically to optimize our potential. So I'm going to come back to that. Maybe I'll offer you guys another free session. I'm actually going to do a full course, but I think that's not going to be January, an 8-week course, specifically how to bring music into your life that will optimize your potential. In Howard Gardner's, different science on the forms of intelligence, music is a form of intelligence, and even Beethoven says music is a form of higher intelligence that understands us as human beings, understands how to be in our DNA and in our minds and in our soul force that we're yet to fully understand. So my goal is to help you not only understand, but practically use that tool to optimize your life. And then I'm going to roll it over to questions. If people are interested in that, just put a note in the chat or let me know, reach out to me. We're also going to be on some of these high performance tools. I'm going to be doing Create a Masterpiece Life program starting the end of September. So I invite you, if you like this work and you want to really take it to the next level and go much deeper into all these, I'm basically bringing together what I've learned over 40 years into what I think are the optimal tools to really help us take our life to the next level. Because I really want to help people during this time. This is the critical time. We're deciding now in this COVID period how we want to show up, whether we're going to grow and become these radiant exemplars of a new world order, or whether we're just going to let it take us down, or whether we're going to get stuck in our old ways, our own habits. And I really want to help people come into this new world order, creating something magnificent. I want to co-create it with you. And I want to build a new world together that starts with each of us kind of fulfilling our potential so we can help others to do the same.